It's Wednesday, November 19th. Welcome back to the Women's Lounge. I'm Emiliana Cuereca, your host. Before we bring in today's powerhouse guest, let's talk through what we need to know today, right? So today, first, we have a global crisis that should stop the world in its tracks. A new report from the World Health Organization shows that 840 million women and girls have experienced physical or sexual violence. Nearly a billion women in the Americas alone, which means that 1 in 3 women over 15 has faced intimate partner violence. So this isn't just a statistic, it's a global emergency. And specifically when we're talking about the Epstein files, right? So we're talking about young women and girls facing harassment, facing intimate partner violence, but facing violence in general. It doesn't have to be a partner, it could be a stranger. So we're also talking about conflict around the world and how it's hitting women the hardest. The Human Rights Watch reports that violence against women has escalated, and that it has escalated to the point where women and girls are also losing access to health care. They may face trafficking, forced displacement. So we've got a lot of issues around women as well as early marriage. So we're talking about child marriage too. So we're talking about policy, and we can't pretend that it isn't policy around the globe that tends to affect women and girls the most. So with that, today we're going to we're going to have a conversation with Eva Posner. We're going to have a conversation around electing women. We're going to have a conversation around what it takes to elect women, what it takes to run for office. Eva Posner is one of the sharpest political strategists in the country, so we're excited about that. And of course, we're also talking and celebrating that Virginia now has a female governor. New Jersey has a female governor. And of course, Michigan has a female mayor for the first time. So a few wins in between all of this heaviness around women's rights. Let's get into it. It's Wednesday, and we're back with the Women's Lounge. And as you know, my guest today, Eva Posner, is a truly, truly political Renaissance woman, we spoke about before. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. And I know. You said you're in Virginia.
I am.
How is Virginia feeling right now?
Fantastic, actually. I'm really loving, we made history, first woman governor. It's only took 400 years, so, a little behind the times, but better late than never. Honestly, I cried when she won, so it was just very exciting.
Absolutely. So I'm in Los Angeles, and today it's raining and we're just spoiled around weather, but we phone banked. One of our staffers was out knocking on doors in Virginia, so we were all excited for it.
Well, thank you so much for your help because it worked.
It all worked, all of us. So let's get into it. Let's get into what you do, because I'm like super excited, and most people should be. So you've worked at every angle of a campaign, field, fundraising, comms, which is difficult, communications, operations. What made you decide to start Envico Strategies? What made you decide to focus on that first time underrepresented candidates?
Yeah. So those things are closely related. Essentially, what made me start Avinco Strategies was the fact that there were a bunch of old male consultants that I had been working with on campaigns that, in my opinion, were lazy, and kind of, out of touch. And I got tired of doing their strategies and what they said and wanted to kind of try something new and do my own thing. And I genuinely believe in representative government. I genuinely believe that, our democracy should look like and sound like and feel like the people that it represents, that the lived experiences of those people are what make policies that actually help. And so, I wanted to make sure that, I was doing work to get those folks elected. And the longer I was in politics, the more obvious it became that, there were barriers for those people, barriers for just frankly non straight white men that didn't exist for, the white dudes. And so I wanted to do what I could to build infrastructure that would help support those people and move them along, and through the political process, and just make it less gate kept. It's a very
Right.
gate kept industry, and when you're gatekeeping knowledge and resources and connections and networks, and money, then it's only gonna go to the folks who already have influence. It's only gonna go to the folks who already have resources. And so trying to, be kind of an anti-gatekeeper was a big part of it.
So I think when we talk about barriers for those that don't, they're not in it, I'm going to say that are not in it the way we are. We know what the barriers are. Most people do not understand that some of the barriers, yes, are income, but as you said, connections. How do you work and how do we all help work break down those barriers?
I mean, I think a big piece of it is just actually talking about how the system works and not what your civics book said in the 6th grade, but like how it really works. Politics is an industry nowadays, just like anything else. I call it the political industrial complex. There are, a group of people who do this professionally for money. I say they like I'm not one of them. That we have a monetary motivation for certain outcomes. And that drives a lot of decision making and being able to follow the money, not just when it comes to fundraising, but also when it comes to relationships and consultants and some of the more behind the scenes things. That is a lot of how you navigate this system, in order to run for office. If you don't know the right people, if you're not in the right rooms, you are not getting anywhere. And so anybody, talking about it, I think is a big piece. Another one is just like introducing people, being willing to share your relationships, being willing to say, hey, you and this person are, you're passionate about the same thing and they have a lot of infrastructure or they have a lot of money or they have, they've built an organization or, they have a lot of activists who, will show up for them,
Yeah,
have a lot of community networks. They have a lot, whatever it is, because influence can look a lot of different ways. Being willing to bring people into those spaces and share those relationships with folks instead of gatekeeping them, I think is also really, really important. And will is something that everyday people can do. Is just to keep introducing people who have similar interests, and then they build their own networks and build their own power and go from there, and not being threatened by that. Right? There's a lot more.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot more work that needs to be done than there is, time to do it, and so we need help. So why hold someone back who's willing to do good work?
Absolutely. And I think for women, I think when we talk about, not be threatened by more people doing the work, we're often told to wait our turn. How do you help candidates push past that mindset? Right? And thinking it is your turn. How
Yeah, I mean, I will say by the time people get to me, generally speaking, they have decided it's their turn, because they wouldn't be talking to me if they weren't gonna run for office. What I will say, though, is that I have noticed every single cycle that the men jump first, and that the white men jump the earliest. And so there is a space where, like, we'll get into, you'll get 6 months or a year into an election cycle, and a great diverse candidate, a great female candidate, a great queer candidate will come out and like launch their campaign, and everybody's already endorsed, and everybody's, oh, well, I wish you had announced earlier, or I wish I could support you, but I've already been over there. So I do think, work needs to be done and kind of speeding that along. One way that I have worked over the years to do it is to actually start coaching folks ahead of time. And if there, we have like a coaching program for candidates at our company, and so if somebody comes to me and they're not sure they want to run for office yet, then we coach them through, how to make the decision, what office to run for. Start working with them to build their fundraising list. Start working with them to place them in media, kind of increase their name ID, put them in certain rooms, get them more connections, and they can take their time building these relationships. But then we plan for them to run in a future cycle, maybe 2 years from now. So they're taking their time over the course of that 2 years, but then when that cycle hits, they can launch out the gate so that they're not behind the curve, and they've already built some infrastructure ahead of time to make that launch go smoothly.
I think that's critical because most people don't understand that as you said, by the time they get to you, they've decided they want to run. And so I always find that sometimes they'll say, but there's two women running. Emmy, how do you pick? I was like, it doesn't matter. Figure out who you want to support, figure out how you move forward. And I'm always of may the best woman win. so so I'm always thinking about that. And I know politics can be brutal. So I want to talk about those high stake races and then the small grassroots campaigns. What's a lesson that applies to both type of campaign?
They're both going to change your life. How much they change your life depends on the size of the race that you pick and what you do with it. But running for office is a life decision, like getting married or buying a house or getting a dog. It is an investment in um somewhere from 6 months to 2 years to 50 years if you get elected and are incumbent forever, as people tend to do. Then there is, either way, your life kind of doesn't belong to you anymore. You become a brand, you become a symbol, you become a leader. You build all these networks, you build all this infrastructure, and maybe you win, maybe you lose. But who you are and your relationship with your community has changed forever. You're going to spend money on it. You're going to spend time on it that isn't going to go to your job or your family or caretaking responsibilities or other volunteering. If you're serious about it, you have to, make it a at least top 3 priority in your life. And so it is absolutely going to change the way your day-to-day life functions, for a long period of time. And I think that is something that both parties, frankly, do a really bad job of explaining to people. They do a great job of recruiting them. There's a lot of like, go, 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 cheerlead, cheerlead, cheerlead. And then, like letting them fall off a cliff by themselves and not explaining to them how this works and how it can become all encompassing and the ways in which it can really impact your life. It can impact your marriage. I've seen candidates take a second mortgage out on their house. It can impact their relationship with their children. It can impact their relationship with their family, especially nowadays where families are so split. And so this is not to say don't do it. I want more people, more normal people to run for office. I think that's really important. But I also don't want to mislead people into thinking that this is all glamour and an episode of West Wing, because it's not. And knowing what you're getting yourself into, makes it easier to function when you're there. And that, and get a therapist, please. You're going to
Yes,
need it.
mental health. Well, I also think that, I mean, we saw that in 2018. We saw a lot of women running for office, a lot. And then, as you said, like talking through what does this take, right? And now with social media, I mean, it feels like these folks are constantly on. And what does it take? So I agree. I think we need to know more. Even myself, like how do they do this? And again, partnership, what affects your family. This is what you do. I want to talk about the issue campaigns that you've worked on. I know you've worked on tackling social and criminal justice. What have you learned along the way on how to move hearts and minds beyond just the headlines? How do we do that, especially now?
So one of the really hard lessons to learn, if I'm really honest, is it's not always about changing hearts and minds. So On the police reform measure that we did, which was in 2020, it was a measure to get an independent commission on police practices in the city of San Diego. I lived in San Diego at the time, so I was also in Southern California. And, the community had been pushing for this for somewhere near 30 years. They'd done a lot of great work. They had been flaunted by the police union over and over and over again. And, they brought us in to try to help. And one of the things, and we ran, initially a normal liberal social justice campaign, and it was, do the right thing, and it was transparency and accountability, and it was Black Lives Matter, and it was, it was the criminalization of Latinos as immigration, the criminalization of AAPI communities because California has a really high growing rate, how criminalization of LGBTQ communities leads to homelessness and all of these other things, and talking about how it hurts people, right? And how we have a social responsibility to do the right thing here because police brutality ruins lives. And we ran that campaign for over a year. And then right before the election, and it helped us raise money, don't get me wrong, like it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it for the purpose that we were in at the time. But right before the election, we did a poll. And when we did the poll, we realized that it wasn't moving independence and it wasn't going to win the way that we had been doing this message. And so we got the results back and we're like, oh no, like we're going to lose this. And that's in 2020, in the middle of, all of the big social justice reckoning, we were going to lose.
To
Then
go.
there was this one piece of information that we found in the polling data. And it was that there was a disproportionate number of independents, in particular independent men, who would move on the endorsement of the California Nurses Association. And so that was that they care, they trust nurses, they care what they think and they trust them. And so they were willing to vote for what they said. The whole campaign became nurses say yes on B. It wasn't about justice anymore. It wasn't about what we thought was right. We couldn't say what we wanted to say, what was on our hearts. We had a responsibility to win.
Yeah.
And you have to meet people where they are. And so the hardest lesson I have learned is that just because something pulls at my heartstrings doesn't mean that it pulls at everybody else's, and that I have a bigger responsibility to win than I do to say the right thing and have all the qualifiers and make sure I get it off my chest. And I think that's really hard for liberals, progressive, leftist, Democrats, whatever it is you want to call us. We bring emotions to a numbers fight. And when I changed the tactic based on the numbers, it actually got that commission vote, that ballot measure vote got a higher vote share than Joe Biden in the city of San Diego because we threw our whole campaign plan away and just went, nurses said yes. And everybody was like, cool, great, got it, check.
Right. And I think, yes, I think part of it is truly that we work so hard at it and we're looking at it like we're coming from the right place, right? But as you said, we've got to meet people where they're at but also make it simple. Nurses say
Mhm.
yes. Everyone will trust a nurse. So yeah, I've been through lessons like that where I'm like, no, this is what the paperwork says. This is what we talked about. This is hearts and minds. It's like, no, it's this. So
Yep,
I think those are hard lessons. But I'm glad and it passed.
it did.
Yay!
Yeah,
See, nurse
it passed
said
by
yes.
the highest margin in the city.
Yes. Hard lesson, but I think if we look at even how we are working through politics right now, simplifying it. How will it work for the people? What are they listening to? So I agree. Um I want to talk about for anybody, but more importantly, women listening who want to get involved in politics, whether it's running for office, volunteering, organizing. Where should they start?
So my number one piece of advice is always to start by creating a Rolodex. And by a Rolodex, what I mean, because it's not the 70s anymore, what I mean is a list of contacts. Put everybody you have ever met in a spreadsheet. Everybody you've ever worked with, download your email, download your cell phone, download your LinkedIn. Look at your Christmas card list, your wedding invitation list, the trade association directory that you get, whatever it is, wherever you have contact information, and putting that all in one place. The reality of politics is that it is about collecting people. And we use those people for different things. We use them for their time, we use them for their resources, et cetera, for their leadership, for their communication skills, for their relationships, for whatever it is, whatever person, everybody has their role. But at the end of the day, it's literally about which side collected the most people and got them to do the thing. And so start collecting your people and put it in an organized space where you can make phone calls, make text messages, send emails. And you'll be able to. Number one, it is a requirement of running for office. Your list is gold. It is the thing that will make or break your infrastructure. Not doing it, you're starting from behind. It's going to be a mess. Just do it. It's tedious, but just do it. But even if you're not going to run for office, I'm not going to run for office, but my list is such a huge portion of what my clients pay me for, because it's hundreds of thousands of donors and volunteers and that I've curated over the course of a decade with the help of my team, putting together this giant database of people from across the country who are willing to donate, who are willing to make phone calls, who are willing to do all this stuff. Being able to ask those people to do the action item, that collection of people, is what gives me influence in politics. And so
Absolutely.
get your lists together.
Get your list together, and I'm gonna say, get your shit together.
I mean,
Just
that too. Look, that too. That too.
but also, I think to the point of, and I don't think I've ever heard this from folks that, including myself, who ask women to run for office. Um, Decide that this is what you want to do. Get your list together, but also understand what it will take once you get elected. So I think that that's going to be that's critical, and I have not heard anyone say that. It's more about raise money, be authentic. And it's like, it's going to take over your life.
Yeah, no, it's going to take over your life, and it's mostly actually phone calls. You're spending if you run for office, you are signing up to spend somewhere between 6 months to 2 years at a time on the phone asking people to do shit for you. That's it. That's a campaign.
That's it.
There's a branding, and there's TikToks, and it's fancy, and sometimes there's galas, and maybe there's a press conference, and maybe somebody will drop balloons on your head, but mostly you're just making phone calls and asking people to
Absolutely.
do things for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for breaking it down. I'm going to ask you, looking ahead, are there any races in 2026 that you're excited about that we should be watching closely?
You should look at the Nevada governor's primary. There is a woman primarying the Attorney General of Nevada to defeat and flip the governor's mansion in Nevada. Her name is Alexis Hill, and everybody should look at Alexis Hill. She is pragmatic. She is progressive. She's a mom, but she has independent appeal because she's also about solutions and meeting people where they are. Her whole campaign is, against the not just Donald Trump, but also the future Donald Trumps and the oligarchy that built him. She's campaigning against Musk and Bezos and all of these systems that have trapped us in the situation that we're in now. The people who spend their money to buy the White House and buy Congress. She's incredible. And I think everybody should look at the Nevada governor's race. Alexis Hill.
Yes. Yeah, Alexis Hill. All right. I'm gonna look into it. I just got back from Nevada, and I'm ready to knock on more doors.
Amazing.
All right, I'm gonna close it up with thank you for joining me today. And I hope that we will continue to work together. Where can we find you in case someone wants to run for office?
You can find us at evincostrategies.com, and Evinco is EVINCO. I do a 15-minute free phone call for anybody who is interested. And so you can go on the website, click book a call. Somebody on our team will talk you through it, and we'll get to the bottom of why you want to run and start talking through what will make sense for you.
All right. All right. Moving into our women's rights in a minute. I'm going to say we have a bright spot. We do. So in Chicago, hundreds of tradeswomen are marching. They are marching to celebrate the hard fought gains in construction and labor jobs. A local woman led nonprofit is pushing back against political attacks and DEI and keeping the doors open for the next generation. So we're excited about that. So again, a bright spot, but also the Senate has officially passed legislation forcing the Justice Department to release more information about the case it built around the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, known as the Epstein Files. 427 to 1. That was the vote. So the senators had locked in on an agreement to automatically pass the bill as soon as it was received from the House, which overwhelmingly passed on Tuesday. And now it heads to the president's desk. It heads to the desk where he says he will sign it. I'm not sure I believe that, but we'll see. So that comes despite the fact that the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, saw at the 11th hour changes to the House passed bill and didn't rule out the possibility that he would encourage Trump to veto it. So the Speaker of the House would encourage the president to veto the bill. Again, there is something nefarious going on. If we think about it, if they waited 50 days to confirm the Lita Congresswoman from Arizona. What were they waiting for? So here we are. The Senate, 427 to 1, has passed it. So assuming that the president follows through, the Justice Department will have 30 days to release the materials with redactions to protect Epstein's victims. I think at this point we need to talk about who it's really protecting, because I think that the victims that are still out there, the victims want justice. And I think at this point they are not, I know they are grown women and they want justice. And so when they talk about redactions, I think that they are trying to protect themselves. As we have seen, there are very powerful men that have been named. We know that the president himself, President Trump, has been named quite a few times in emails. So we're going to stay tuned to see. What gets released. They have 30 days. Hopefully he doesn't veto it. But again, we're back to where we started. Also, don't forget Pam Bondi was Attorney General in Florida when they had arrested Epstein, who, as we all know, died by suicide in prison. And Ghislaine, his partner in crime, is currently being held in a facility. So we're going to see where that goes. So yeah. So the world's giving us a lot today in violence, in geopolitics, in workers' rights. But it's all connected. It's every issue is a woman's issue, as we say. It's all connected. And that's why we're here, to make sense of it, to stay grounded, and to continuously stay loud and advocate for women. So I'm Emiliana Guereca, your host at the Women's Lounge. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, share, and of course, always send us your questions. Next week's episode, we're going to start responding and answering questions. I'm going to say the first 5 questions will get answered. Thank you for listening. See you next week.